You know, there's a sense of closure. Of course, we're not done yet. We still have, a body to find and still a story to tell. This case came in, and many people thought that we wouldn't get here. So when you do things that people don't think you can do, it feels pretty good. This is, I think, about the fourth or fifth cold case that we've able to come up with something where the person's now sitting in prison versus walking on our streets. And so in that instance, it feels pretty good to have some justice. The other hand is, there's a dead child here, and you really can't cheer over that. I mean, there's still a tragedy, and this case will always be a tragedy, no matter how well we done. Even if we went to a jury trial and got a conviction of murder, it still wouldn't be a real victory, other than for the family getting the Peter Boy's body back and bringing that closure to that family who's been waiting all these years, as well as the community who's been waiting all these years.
Are you pleading guilty to count one of the complete superseding indictment, which charges you with manslaughter?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
So yesterday he pled to manslaughter, and pled guilty to manslaughter and guilty to hindering prosecution in the first degree. And it's, I guess, pretty important for us to have those convictions.
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
The statute of limitations for manslaughter is 10 years, and obviously when we started working on it, we were past that 10-year statute of limitations, and that may have changed the way we handled this case if we were able to do this a lot sooner. But because he was taking this deal and he wanted to have that, he had to waive the statute of limitations for both of those charges. The hindering prosecution, I believe, is a 3-year statute of limitations.
Right.
So he could have walked away from both of those charges if that's what we're planning on charging him at the time.
I remember the case being investigated as a missing person, and basically it was suspected homicide already, but no one made a missing person report. That the parents kept saying that the child was in Honolulu. So there was extensive investigation trying to find Aunty Rose. Police expended a whole lot of effort all the way to Florida trying to find Aunty Rose. We even did a search in the Mormon database because they have a great genealogy database, and no Aunty Rose. And then I was never assigned to it back then, but in 2014, Mitch asked me to come back and work on the homicides, and that's when we actually got back into the case and started reviewing everything. And once we started going through all the CPS reports and re-interviewing people, observations were corroborated by other observations. We had videotape, we had photos proving the injuries, the abuse and all that, and descriptions of the infection. And then finally we had Dr. Canty Diawis, who, by the way, volunteered her time. She didn't, there's no charge there was no charge for her to do it. She wanted to do it for the boy. And she reviewed the whole thing and came up with the cause of death as sepsis. So at that point, we had enough to go forward, and I'll let Rick take it. But also the police did extensive work on this, and networking played big. So we even had assistance from the National NCMEC, missing children, exploited children, from the Attorney General's office and the federal. So big networking was done, and it resulted in narrowing down the facts, and we truly believed we could prove to the jury.
A lot of people are asking why did it take so long. The police never stopped investigating this case, never stopped looking at leads, and they got leads from all over the country. While it's true that law enforcement had a pretty strong suspicion from the beginning that it might be a homicide, the first thing they had to work with was that there was no report of a missing persons until 6 months after the child was already deceased, and that put law enforcement 6 months behind trying to catch the responsible people. And anytime you get a 6-month lead, it's like having a 6-month lead in a foot race. You're not going to catch it up real quick. A lot of people in our office looked at that case over a long period of time. One of the stumbling blocks was there were a number of witnesses who believed pretty strongly that this child was alive and well in late July and August of 1997, where our analysis put that child dying before July 14th. So when you have some people who are pretty adamant that he was alive and well in August of 97, and the defense has put out there that he was taken to Honolulu, while you can look at an individual person and say they're either lying or mistaken, you can't just assume that they're lying. And so the limited things that we did after March of 2016 is we went back, we talked to those witnesses. Whenever you ask a witness questions about a timeline, about something that happened a year ago or 2 years ago, if you don't have something to give them a point of reference, it's very common for people to make errors. And law enforcement, including Mr. Pereira and our paralegal, Maurice Messina, I just asked them to do a couple of things. So one woman insisted that she had a garage sale in August of 1997, and the entire Kema family showed up, including Peter Boy, and he was alive and well, and she was adamant that she remembered it was the garage sale that she put in the Tribune, and she remembered it because she had just found out she's pregnant with her child who was born in the following February. So we sent out our paralegal to go down to the local library and check the listings. The police had done this too, but they didn't find any garage sale in August of 1997. And so I told him to continue looking until he did find the garage sale. And the garage sale didn't happen in 97, didn't happen in 96. It happened in 1995. And there was a garage sale in 1995, and the child would have been okay in 1995. And turns out that the witness had 2 children, both of them born in the month of February. One was in February of 96, and the other was in February of 98. And at that point in time, she realized her mistake. And so those are things that will not get you on forensic files. But they're very basic to saying, okay, they're not lying, they're just mistaken. It's a mistake that anybody can make. Then the other thing that we did was, like I said, over the years, these things from the community come in, and over the years, police departments, and you can imagine a police officer's working these cases, and in, day out, he's getting these informations or tips from the public, and each one of them doesn't come to fruition. And there was one in August of 2011 that we asked that they make another check again, and we basically found Andy Rose. and that sort of changed the whole color of the case. So we got a tip in 2011 that there was a person was known as Rose, and Rose used to babysit for the chemist. Used to babysit Peter Boy, and we went out and we found her, and basically she said yes, she did babysit him, and she said she used to babysit him while the adults would go visit the Bakuakanis. Well, the thing is, and this happens a lot in criminal investigations, is she left the state of Hawaii before this whole thing blew up, and she was actually living in Wyoming when she got visited by a team from America's Most Wanted, because some people in Wyoming said, well, we got this person from Hawaii, and her name's Rose, and she's got a young boy. And so America's Most Wanted investigated and confirmed that she does have a nickname Rose, but she had her nephew with her, and it wasn't Peter Boy. So all those leads were followed all over for years, and we kind of got lucky at the right time.
We've learned something in the last 4.5, 5 years about cold cases. Well, I've learned something, and that is, we look at these cases and you go back and you start investigating again, and you're going to find a lot more than what's just in the police report. And I think, this case sat with one deputy for about 12 years, and we found that there was things that were never really looked into, people who were never really talked to. And so once we started talking to those people and scraping the paint a little bit, getting underneath to find out what's underneath, we found out that this case was a lot better than a lot of people thought at the very beginning. It still would have been a difficult case to prove, without a body, but we've done several of these cases where people have been walking around for way too long, and families have been missing justice for way too long. And what's made the difference with this case and in every other case that we've worked on is going back, doing the basics, start talking to people, finding out what happens and what they remember. And a lot of times people will tell the police, they'll answer their questions, but if you don't ask additional questions, you don't find additional information. We started asking for additional information, and we started looking at things, and I think Billy can talk about videos that we saw. And once we figured out what really happened and started looking into that, it was a whole different case.
Before I interview, or if I get stuck, I just pray, and I ask God to reveal the truth. And it's amazing what comes out after that. So that's what I do. I ask God for it, for the assistance.
At the end of the day, we want to get justice for the family, and this is what they wanted.
Luck is important, okay? And the longer you hang around and the more persistent that you are, the greater the likelihood is that you're going to be lucky. And I'm not ashamed to say that I kind of got lucky in March of 2016. So, I'll take the evidence whichever way I can get it, but luck's important too. Thank you.